Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Mark Graham, and this is going to be my first video review in a series of reviews, hopefully about the Studio Ghibli films. So a couple of weeks ago I noticed in an article that the Studio Ghibli films were going to be released on Netflix, and yeah, that really intrigued me because over the years I had heard about Studio Ghibli, but I'd never seen any of their films. And so a couple of weeks ago, I watched My Brother Totoro, and also in this video I'm going to be chatting about Spirited Away as well. So yeah, for those who don't know, Studio Ghibli is a Japanese animation film studio based in Koganai, Tokyo, Japan. Let's see. It was founded on the 15th of June 1985, and its founders are Hayao Miyazaki, Toshio Suzuki, and Isao Takahata. Hopefully I pronounced those right. Oh, and Yashoichi Takuma. Probably not pronounced right at all. So yeah, they're really big in Japan. I've heard people say they're almost the Disney of Japan in terms of how well known they are. First of all, My Neighbor Totoro. As I said, I watched it first a couple of weeks ago, and then I watched it earlier this week with Mum. And so it was released in 1988, and so the description here in IMDb says, when two girls move to the country to be near their ailing mother, they have adventures with the wondrous forest spirits who live nearby. So I think first of all, it's just interesting to see in animation form, basically the Japanese way of life. Obviously it's not totally real, but it seems to be a fair representation of their culture and that kind of thing, and it's just interesting obviously to get away from the normal types of animation we're used to. And I think the main thing I'd say for My Neighbor Totoro is that it's a very simplistic film. It's a nice, gentle wee film you can watch with your family, and with the coronavirus at the minute, if you're a bit scundered with having to watch Frozen over and over again, if you've wee ones, or Baby Shark, or whatever it is, this is a really fun film that you can watch with your kids, that I really highly recommend. I think the main things that makes it stand out are its cinematography and probably its pacing, and probably thirdly the realism of it all, if that makes sense. So I know nowadays animated films are getting really photorealistic with their textures and clothes and hair and all that kind of thing. But what I mean in realistic for this one is kind of to do with characters, like temperament, their emotions, and kind of their mannerisms. It's all very subdued and realistic. It's not over the top or exaggerated. The film isn't really forcing you to feel anything, and it's not going over the top, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's just a very basic film, very basic storyline, but there also is kind of a serious undertone to it. It's not, sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and all that kind of like fluffy stuff. It's a bit, you can't really connect with it. But so yeah, the mannerisms, a lot of animation films, obviously everything's exaggerated, characters' movements, emotions, reactions, that kind of thing, whereas this, everything's very realistic. And the two girls who are kind of the main characters, they're called Mei and Satsuki. Their second name is Kuzukabe. So them two and their dad have moved to this rural house. It's in like a rice field, I think, or corn. It's maybe a cornfield. And they're in this new house and they're exploring the house, and it was interesting watching with mum, and she picked up on the different things and the fact that, you know, it's exactly like how little girls would act. They're really perplexed by different things, small things, and they're staring at weird paintings or whatever it is for, well, not weird paintings, weird things they find for minutes on end, and they're all very intrigued by these small things and the curiosity, and it's all very realistic as to how little girls would act in the real world. So the first maybe third of it is there's no real fantastical elements in it, but we get introduced to Totoro, which is the bear type fluffy thing, and this is where kind of the mystical fantasy plot kind of kicks in, and so yeah, it kind of goes from there, and there's different scenes where you don't really know what's happened, if it's real or if it's not, or if it's in the kid's imagination. It's all left to you to decide. Nothing's really given a clear answer or resolution or explanation. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's a nice alternative from what maybe from the animation films we're used to, and I would really highly recommend it if you're a family with young kids, for something else to watch, because it's got all the kind of cute and funny, happy elements of a traditional animation, but also its tone and pace and cinematography is quite different from what we'd be used to. So I'd really highly recommend My Neighbor Totoro. So yeah, I meant to say it's directed by one of the founders, Hayao Miyazaki. So next we will look at Spirited Away. This one and My Neighbor Totoro were probably the two Studio Ghibli films that I had really heard about in any kind of shape or form. The rest of them I don't really have any clue what they're about or their titles. So this one was released in 2001, and its IMDb description says, during her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into a world ruled by gods, witches and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. So these films are quite a big contrast in their subject matter and how wacky they are. My Neighbor Totoro is very simplistic and easy to watch and quite relaxing, whereas there's a lot more going on in this, and there's a lot of symbolism and different things and commentary and how we are as people and how we consume things and how that kind of poison us almost. So the main character in this is a girl called Chihiro, and again her family are, I can't remember if they're moving house or if they're just on a holiday, but basically they come across their dad is driving and they're following instructions on a map or whatever it is, and they come across this like stone monument of this was like a face on it and then a tunnel. So they go down this tunnel, and then this is where, the same way as My Neighbor Totoro, kind of the first part of it is it's realistic, it's in the real world, and then the kind of the fantastical elements kick in. So in the same way as My Neighbor Totoro, again, what really I think sets these films apart is how realistic everything is, despite there being ghosts and spirits and really wacky creatures. The main character, Chihiro, all her emotions and reactions and everything's very realistic as to how we would act, or a small 10-year-old girl would act in that situation. And yeah, the same way, I think the cinematography in this and the pacing is all really great, and it all really adds to your imagination of what's going on. And in the same way, not everything's resolved, and there's some scenes where it's a bit ambiguous as to what actually really happened, or what's kind of the character's imagination or vision or whatever it is. But again, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's about half an hour longer than My Neighbor Totoro, and I probably wouldn't recommend it in the same way if you're a family with young kids, but because there's a lot more going on and there's a lot more plot, and some of it might not seem that interesting to young kids, but a really great film. This one is also, I believe, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. So yeah, I'd probably give these films probably a solid 8 or 9, both of them respectively. I think they're a really great change of pace from what we're used to, and at this time when we've a lot more free time to watch films, I'd really recommend watching them. And just seeing, I say see the Japanese way of life, but it's not obviously totally accurate, but it's a good starting point, and it's interesting to see just how their culture kind of works in regards to ours and their filmmaking and that kind of thing. So really, really great films, and really happy that that they're on Netflix and I can watch them. So yeah, I'm hoping to review a lot more of these Studio Ghibli films. I think there's maybe 10 or 12 on Netflix at the minute, but I don't think that's all of the Studio Ghibli films. I think there's maybe some that aren't on Netflix at the minute. So yeah, really great films, really recommend them, and stay tuned for future Studio Ghibli reviews on the channel. So I will see you later. Okay, it's me back again. Two things that I forgot to mention in the review that I thought were important to bring up again were, so the music in both films are both fantastic, and especially the main theme for My Neighbor Totoro is a really catchy wee tune. And also another point I wanted to make was there's a certain term for what these scenes are, but I can't remember right now. But basically in both films, there's some scenes where a character or multiple characters, basically they sit in silence in the scene for maybe a couple of minutes at a time, and they basically just take in the world around them. And these are really helpful scenes as well when it comes to the realism that I mentioned, and seeing the characters just take in the world as we would. And yeah, those are really good scenes for the pace, that really help the film just be more relatable and connectable, as I said. And those are just two things that I wanted to mention here at the end that I thought were important. So there you are.